Hello one and all, my name is Sean Splains and this is Civilization VII, and today I wanted to take some time to talk about fleet commanders. With the introduction of the new leader Yi Sun-shin and being able to get fleet commanders in Antiquity, I feel that since quite a lot of people mostly play Antiquity in Civilization, this is a really good time to talk about this. For two reasons. Firstly, what I just said, a lot of people who maybe didn't play much exploration will now have an opportunity using the fleet commander. And secondly, the fleet commander in Antiquity will be largely different from the fleet commander in Exploration for a couple of reasons. But we'll get to that as we talk about the tree and talk about the different points and the differences that they have. What you'll see is very similar to a land commander, where we have the leadership, manoeuvre and logistics tree. In terms of colour scheme, as much as logistics, manoeuvre and leadership stay the same in terms of their positioning, the red and green trees have swapped over, with engagement being the green tree, which is in this space instead of assault, and bombardment is the red tree, which is in this space instead of bastion. Although instead of one being more offense and one more defense based, it's more a case of the engagement tree is better for dealing with naval units, whereas the bombardment tree is better for dealing with land units. So with all of that out of the way, we'll move into what the trees actually do. For bombardment, the first thing we have is shelling, plus 3 combat strength for naval units within the command radius when attacking land units. Naval artillery, plus 5 combat strength for naval units within the command radius when attacking fortified districts. So for these first two, it would largely just be what are you planning to attack more, which in Antiquity, the AI won't be building as many units as they would be in Exploration. So I would suggest naval artillery is better since you're going to be attacking more districts. But it's always good to get shelling as well when you get the chance. I would just suggest going for naval artillery first. On the second leg, we have spotter, which gives you +1 ranged attack distance for naval units within the command radius. And then secondary armament, which is naval units within the command radius deal reciprocal damage when defending against ranged attacks. Reciprocal damage in this game is the term used when you receive damage as well as deal it, which happens all the time when you're doing melee battles, but it doesn't happen when you're attacking with a ranged unit. Since when you're attacking with a ranged unit, you're not receiving an attack back, you're not receiving reciprocal damage. In terms of naval battles, all of your naval units in Antiquity only have an attack range of 1, whereas in Exploration, your light naval units have an attack range of 1, whereas your heavy naval units tend to have an attack range of 2. So that's where the big difference between Antiquity and Exploration comes into play, and that's where this spotter ability becomes probably the most important skill in the entire tree for Antiquity, because in a lot of cases, this can make your naval fleet borderline invincible. If you're able to attack from a distance to land units who can never hit you, and other boats who would never get near you, let's say you have 3 galleys, but you are attacking with all 3 into a boat, you'll probably kill that boat and you'll never get attacked. Unless there's a heavy naval armada coming towards you, which won't really happen in Antiquity, you could roam about the map with 4 galleys, have +1 attack range, which allows you to attack further inland and take out more fortified districts, and you wouldn't have anything to deal with. From my experience, the only units that really cause you much bother are the siege units like Trebuchet, but you wouldn't really worry about that until about 50-60% into the age when the AI starts to build them. Before that, you have free reign to just tear through the map with a +1 attack range. And you can also get an extra +1 attack range from playing as Carthage and using one of their traditions. So it's important to keep that in mind. You can actually go as high as 3 attack range in Antiquity. But coming back to the actual skill tree itself here, and talking about reciprocal damage again, like I said, if you have extra attack range, you do not need to worry about reciprocal damage, but any other archers or siege units that are attacking you would be hurt in return at the same time as they're attacking you. Moving down to the last one in the tree, we have gunfire support. Naval units within the command radius have the splash ability. Enemy units in tiles adjacent to the target take 25% of the total damage done to the target. This again is essential when pairing it up with the +5 combat strength towards fortified districts, because not only does this attack other surrounding units with 25% of the damage, if you attack into a fortified district like a wall and there's a unit inside who normally wouldn't take any damage because the walls would take all of the damage for them. This does 25% extra damage to the units within the walls, so you can actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone and tear the walls down and kill the units within the fortified district at the same time. Moving on to the engagement tree, we have reinforced hull. Naval units within the command radius take half reciprocal damage when flanking. Again, this is only really useful if you don't have the +1 attack range, because that's the only reason that you would be flanking physically into the opponent. But taking half damage in return compared to what you usually would is obviously very strong, so that's a good bonus. And here we have the equivalent of initiative on your land commander, and the fact that you can pack and unpack and still have your movement. I would actually say this is a bit of a trap for naval units in most situations. As much as it sounds really good, being able to unpack your units and then they can attack, or you can do the trick where you can move a unit in and then move them out to the other side. You don't need to do that nearly as often in the sea as you do on the land. There's not much terrain that you need to work around, which is the main reason that you'd be doing that on the land anyway. You only have reefs and your basic shallow sea for the most part. The atolls are quite rare in the game, so you don't really need to worry about losing your movement from it. The galleys and the quadriems towards the end already have 3 movement, so you're very rarely worrying about having to move in and out of the unit. I would say it's useful later on, but I would almost always be picking a different tree before I'd be picking this. This is probably one of the last trees that I would pick, especially in Antiquity. I would say that bombardment, manoeuvre, even leadership or logistics, everything in my opinion is more important than going down the engagement tree. Salvo gives you +3 combat strength for naval units within the command radius when attacking other naval units. Like I mentioned earlier, this isn't a defensive tree, it's just an offensive tree towards other naval units, so this pairs up really nicely with the half reciprocal damage you'll be taking. +3 combat strength for naval units within the command radius when defending. This is just the opposite of Salvo. It gives you a nice bonus whether you're attacking or defending against other naval units. And then lastly we've got Fusillade, which is effectively the first strike ability from your land commander, which in this case is really, really strong. Because like I said earlier, you can have a borderline invincible fleet if you're using your +1 ranged attack distance. Your units are very, very rarely taking damage, so they're most of the time at full health in Antiquity at the very least. So you could just have +5 combat strength for free on all of your units, and if you're using focus fire with 4 units at once, you're effectively getting +22 combat strength compared to what you would usually have in that scenario. Or if you actually have the focus fire buff in the leadership tree, that actually becomes 25 bonus instead of 22 bonus. So that's worth keeping in mind. As much as the rest of this tree isn't that impactful, Fusillade is definitely worth pushing for. Next on to the logistics tree, we again have, similar to the land commander, +1 gold for each unit packed into this commander, as well as the +2 unit slots for the middle point, but instead of being able to mobilise your units into this commander, since that can't be done, you instead get the ability to pack land units into this commander, and that actually includes settlers, merchants, and other land commanders can get packed into this commander. So that's useful to have. We get +15% production towards naval units when stationed on a water district, which again is the exact same as the land commander promotion for this point. And again, the last 2 in the tree are the same as land commander, with +5 healing in enemy neutral territory and +50% yield in HP pillage yields from command radius. The only difference in the tree is that we don't have the very bottom one that gives us extra combat bonuses, because those combat bonuses aren't attainable when you're in sea warfare. Overall, I would say logistics is a nice and balanced tree, and if you're wanting to move land units across the sea in certain maps where that can be useful, this would be a very useful one to go for. Or if you're playing a very passive game and you just want consistent gold bonuses, packing 4 units or even 6 units into the commander and just leaving it in your capital or wherever is a solid way to play the game. Or even getting the +15% towards producing naval units if you want to have more of them. Moving on to the manoeuvre tree, again very similar to the land commander tree, we've got +1 movement for the commander when packed. Again, because we don't really have terrain that slows us down in the sea, there isn't an extra bonus that says ignoring terrain. On here we've got +1 sight range, which is different but can be useful in certain situations. If you have the Marco Polo memento on, which gives you plus 50 gold for every 100 tiles that you find, this can be really good because you're effectively being able to see about an extra 8 or 9 tiles every movement depending on what direction you're going in. On this line, again, very similarly, we have -3 to flanking bonuses on the right with Brace, and +3 to flanking bonuses when attacking with Crossing the T. And then at the very bottom, we have our Zone of Control with Dead Reckoning, which is good for locking enemy units into place so that they can't run away when you're attacking them. And moving on to the last tree, we have Zeal, which gives us plus 5% yields in a settlement when stationed on a water district, notably different from a land commander when theirs is on a land district. And yes, you can stack this, so what can be more efficient in this case is making your harbour and your fishing quay into separate districts rather than putting them together, and even the lighthouse into a third district. Or if you're playing as Carthage, you also get the Punic port. You could effectively make 5 water buildings if you're playing as Carthage. You could place 5 fleet commanders individually into each one and get plus 25% yields in that settlement, which in this case would probably be the capital. And then you could also place land commanders in every single one of your districts and get another 5% towards all of your yields in those cases, and scale through the moon if you would like. So that's a good little tip to keep you going. Going down here, we've got Field Commission, which allows you to upgrade anywhere you like as if you're in friendly territory and heal 10 HP when upgraded, which can be really handy sometimes. But again, like I said, in Antiquity, you probably won't be losing health anyway, so you wouldn't need to worry about that. Plus 10 combat strength for this commander when defending. 9 times out of 10 you don't need to worry about that if you're playing the game well, but it can be handy if you find yourself in a situation where you're maybe getting hit by 6 different enemies in one turn and they kill your boat halfway through it, so your commander has to try and hold out. In the bottom right we have Barrage, which again is one of the better options in the entire tree since it gives you plus 5 combat strength with focus fire, and especially with naval commanders or fleet commanders compared to land commanders, you will be pressing focus fire almost every single turn that you are using them. There's no need to really move your commander about as much or try and get into different positions. Since there's less terrain to get in your way and you actually have 6 movement if you have the +1, you're always pressing focus fire. So I would even suggest rushing down to the bottom of this tree as quickly as possible, or rushing down to the bottom of this one for the +5, or pushing down this one to get your extra splash ability. There's so many different ways that you can choose to play this commander, and there's not really a right or wrong way to do it, other than maxing out the engagement tree, because that's definitely the worst option in my humble opinion. But moving over to the last ability that we have here in Convoys, land units within the command radius have plus 10 embarked strength, and traders within the command radius cannot be pillaged. This is an odd one. In Antiquity, you probably aren't using too many land units anyway for this build, at least for me. I have tried VII Sheen a few times now, and most of the time you can get away with just using an armada, which is a really fun way to play Antiquity compared to the way that we usually do for a military format. But if you wanted to mix and match and have some land units and have some naval units, this is definitely worth going for. In terms of the traders not being pillaged, I wouldn't say that's much of a bonus. The AI doesn't do it too often anyway, so you don't need to worry about that much. Moving on to the commendations, they are all the same as Land Commander, thankfully. On the right we have plus 5 combat strength for naval units instead of land units. Here we've got plus 1 command radius, plus 1 movement for naval units within the command radius. Gain the heroic assault ability, allowing you to deal direct damage to a unit within the command radius. Second wind, which allows you to give another attack effectively to one of your naval units. So again, these are all the same. And after some recent experience in my other videos, I would actually suggest Order probably first, then heroic assault. Then it kind of depends on what you're going for, but plus 1 command radius is one that I really appreciate nowadays, and I didn't used to appreciate enough, so I'll probably go for that third, and then go for second wind to give you an extra attack. Chances are you probably don't need the plus 1 movement. It's more useful for the land commander since most land units only have 2 movement, but like I say, boats have 3, and your commander itself can have 6 if you have this, so chances are you don't really need much movement. I hope this has been quite insightful and useful, especially now that we have the ability to use this commander in Antiquity Age. If you have any queries or there's anything that I haven't mentioned, feel free to pop it down below. And other than that, enjoy raiding with the new fleet commanders in Antiquity. I have been Sean Splains, this has been Civilization 7, and I'll see you in the next one.